Hello, everyone. This is Michaela, and you're listening to the End All the Things podcast. As a life coach and facilitator, I work with individuals and groups to empower their best selves to shine to the betterment of all involved. My goal is always to bring you closer to trusting the voice inside of you that is authentically yours. My job here is no different. In my journey through life, I continue to meet people who use their authenticity, their gifts, to grow, change, and serve through professional and personal endeavors. These people and their stories become my gift to you, for I cannot keep a good thing to myself, and I believe that they may inspire a part of your story to evolve. Hello, and welcome to End All the Things. This is a really great episode. I finished this conversation with so many things in my head, but more than that, the affirmation that the more I show up as myself, the more my life will be fulfilled, and so too the lives of those around me. And since that is my goal in this podcast, it is truly my pleasure to introduce you to Chitra Rochlani. She is the Fit Life Warrior. She is the about to be, depending on when you're listening to this, newly released book, The Warrior Mindset. And we dive into so many parts of who she is and how she thinks and how she overcomes fear so that you can also learn how to bring some of these tips and tricks into your life. So, what you'll learn about Chitra is she is passionate about learning and sharing. And she does both of those things with fervor and clarity and a devotion to helping herself and her world become a brighter place. So, without further ado, I offer to you the one and only Chitra Rochlani and all the things. Hello, Chitra. I am so happy to have you here. We are recording in the morning. We both have a nice, good cup of coffee. We are ready to go. So tell us, Chitra, all about you and your warrior mindset.
Thank you so much for having me, Michaela. I'm so excited.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this, for like 2 months now. It's coming.
Me too. I love everything that you do. So I'm excited to be a part of your podcast as well. So I am Chitra Rochlani. I am a speaker, a coach, and a soon-to-be author of a brand new book called The Warrior Mindset. It's not something I was ever planning to do. Write a book was never on my agenda, but it just, as life happens, it happened, and I got nudged and pushed towards writing a book, and so I did. And now I'm putting it out there in the world, and we'll see what happens.
So when you say you were nudged towards writing a book, what does that mean? Because I'm hearing that maybe it wasn't, it certainly wasn't in the plan, but then it became an idea. Is that what you're saying? And then how did you get the nudge?
So long story, but we can get right into it. I've been in the fitness and nutrition and mindset world as a health coach for about 10 years. And mindset was always something that was important to me. And I think even before that, it was important because my mom, has always talked to me about the power of the mindset, and not by saying this is what the mindset looks like or this is what it should be, but more so like, just shifting my perspective every single day of my life. And as a child, I questioned her all the time. And I was like, little things like, well, the glass, she would say something like, everything happens for a reason. And I was like, everything doesn't happen for a reason. There's got to be something that just does not make sense. And I'm like, if a glass broke, I'm like, well, it broke. What's the reason? She's like, I'll get a new one. I've been waiting to change these forever.
So it's all about how you look at it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And she had a positive spin on everything to the point where it just drove me nuts as a child. And then of course, as I went away from home to, study further, I had to move countries. So I grew up in Dubai, and then I moved to India. And as I was adjusting to this whole new country, I found all of her little positive shifts so helpful. And I found myself, using them, and you know how they say you become your mother.
I'm
So
laughing because this, like, my mom's gonna laugh at this story because it's same all the way through.
really, oh yeah, see, I knew we connected for a
I
reason.
know. It's so exciting. All right, sorry, focus.
So yeah, no, that's amazing. So when that started to happen, it kind of got me curious to learn more. And so I became a personal growth junkie, basically. And I read and consumed every form of personal growth that I could find, whether it was books, it was podcasts, it was movies, it was Oprah when I came here. Like, it was like everything. I wanted it all, and I wanted more of it because I know how much it helped me to cope with difficult times in my life.
And do you think that's yes, part of who you are is who you are at birth, right? But the way that your mom stayed consistent in her messaging of, find the silver lining, find the silver lining. Do you think that something in that was like, if you then jump into self-help books and all the Oprahs of the world, what were you looking for? Were you looking to answer a question of how or why, or was it confirmation? Right? Because
yeah, I
I
think
I
yeah,
understand that, because there's a gap between the knowing and the trusting and our intellectual selves, right? And I'm just
yeah,
always very curious about that gap.
yeah. I think that because I had subconsciously developed the tools through my mom to deal with these difficult times, I felt that there was something different that I was onto. I just couldn't articulate it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I saw more of that in the world, I was drawn to it. And I've always been a learner, I've always been a seeker. And so I've always wanted to know more about, just how to live life, and it was a curiosity, I guess, and a persistence that led me to do more of that.
And I keep hearing you say the word curiosity, and it's such a huge part of my work as a coach, as a speaker, a facilitator. We are not curious enough. We've lost the art of imagination, right? So
Yeah.
when you were 6, right? Because I know that 6 was kind of a pivotal point in your life with health and diet and self-awareness. What did you want to be when you were 6?
This is a funny story. I wanted to be a teacher. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was going around telling the whole world I want to be a teacher. And in hindsight, it makes perfect sense. But around, I think my mom tells me this story again, that you were very, like, one day you came crying to me and you were like so worried that there won't be any kids left because everyone would have grown up.
Oh, the
So,
innocence of children. But but there's something true in that, right? Because as we grow up, the kid in us, the spirit, that curious spirit, tends to diminish, right? So how have you maintained curiosity and that spirit for curiosity throughout life?
I think there's so much to learn, right? The more I dig into a topic, there's like just more revealed to me. It just never ends, right?
I same. It's
Yeah.
so fun, right? Like there's so much out there to learn. And while I don't retain in an actual contextual way, right? I still know a lot of things. And I know what I have access to and what information I could go find when I need it. And I know how to research and I know how to interpret, which I think is really, really, I'm not going to say a lost art because that makes it sound special, but we don't give ourselves enough time for that. So
Yeah,
when you look at your children, and you have 2 kids, right?
I
How
do.
do you think you can help them keep that curiosity, right? So that as they grow up, there are still children in there.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I have 2 boys and they're obviously the opposite of each other in so many
They always
ways.
are.
Always.
You figure one out, you have the next one, you're like, I got this. And then you
Yeah,
don't get this.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I think I do a lot of what my mom does. I just share what I've been learning and I share with them, what excites me. And hopefully they are picking it up in their
Mhm.
subconscious, without even realizing it. That's my hope. I hope that they continue to learn and grow and evolve. I think that the worst thing that we can do is stagnate, and
Absolutely.
it is hard because especially I have seen a lot of people who are sometimes in that rut of being like perfectionists and type A, and they're so used to doing so much that they've forgotten how to be. And so I try to remind my kids, just make time to be, make time to do things that bring you joy. Because when you do that, you will not just, you won't be caught up in the doing and the comparing and all the other stuff that comes with it. And you'll make space for something new to pop into your life. So that's how I try to do it.
And I think that that's a real parallel to, because I definitely dug in and did my research on you and listened and read. And what I really found about the work that you do with physical wellness and, when people come for their body wellness, you talk a lot about all the factors, the mind, body, soul, but you also talk about the mind muscle connection, right? And it's, we can live life and do things, but if we're not engaged and we're not intentional, right, we're going to miss it. Same is true when we exercise, right? Like I remember back to my mom telling me when I was a kid, like, your brain is so powerful, you can exercise your muscles in your brain, right? Like just, right, like the idea and just seeing them strong. And, I'm sure it would take a long time, and maybe that's a stretch of my remembering, but the visualization piece. So, when we think about the mind muscle connection, how do you help people get there? Right? Because we can go in and we can pump the weights, we can do the things, we can push up, pull down. But we can also lift a balloon and get an intense workout. And nothing made that more true for me than when I took a water aerobics class with my mom. I thought I was going to go in like beast mode. And I was like, this is awful. But because I knew how to connect with that muscle energy, right? So how do you help people with that? Because I think where we sit so much and we travel and we are sedentary, how do we connect with our bodies in that way?
Yeah. I think that one of the things that I love doing is going deep into everything, right? So when I started my health journey, and I guess I've been on one for my whole life, but when I was, the one before I just became a fitness coach was where I really learned how to make that mind muscle connection. Before that, I would do, sit-ups, and then I would have pain in my neck, and nobody told me why I was having that. But I was lucky enough to have coaches and guides who helped me understand that. And so, it can be a very meditative experience, And I'm just going to mention this here, and we can bring it up later if it comes up, but I'm also a medium and an intuitive healer. And that's something that I have kind of not shared with the world for 20 years. And then 2 years ago, I just kind of put it out there in the open, like, hey, by the way, I also have this little
Did the
thing.
sky fall? Did like
did not.
the earth shatter?
Oh, nobody died, nobody left me, nobody abandoned me, nobody unfriended me.
Was that a fear that you had? Was that a real possibility for you going into that?
1000%. I was a people pleaser. I would do anything to make you happy. And so if somebody was not happy with me, that was not going to be okay. So I would bend over backwards to make sure people were happy with me.
At whose expense, my dear?
At my own expense. And I had to learn the hard way. And as I learned that, I got, my own self-worth and self-confidence up. And so it, basically evolved into this whole journey towards authenticity. And as I got more and more authentic with myself, I had people, again, friends or, well-wishers or guides who came into my life and pushed me out of my spiritual closet, I like to say.
How
But
long
anyway,
do you think you were in the closet, in the spiritual closet?
how long?
How long do you think?
20, so it's been
In your
24 years now. So I only spoke about it 2 years ago openly.
But you've known for 24 years.
Oh yeah, and I've practiced it. So people around me knew, like the ones close to me, or like if I met somebody who could use my help, I would mention it. But it wasn't like out there. A lot of my friends who were friends with me for 20 years didn't know, and they were like, "What? Why didn't she tell us before?" And I was like, "I don't know, it never came up."
Wow. Well, it's something, it's a very personal thing, right? Like that is that, like there are a lot of boundaries that you need to keep, I'm sure, right? Like within yourself so that I don't know. So it feels okay for you, for them, and maybe I'm projecting. So please clarify if I am. But maybe that's the question. How do you maintain that?
I think everybody has their struggles, and everyone has their strengths, and everyone has, their own journey of becoming authentic.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to go back to or maybe we'll get back to the physical exercise
Yeah,
question
yeah,
later.
yeah. I haven't
Yeah.
forgotten about.
Yeah, I didn't want to not answer that, but I want to mention that real
No,
quick.
thank you. That I was going to ask that shortly, but
Okay.
I'm
All right, we'll
happy
get.
to have it out there. It's all in time.
Yeah. So for me, I think it was I had to make that journey of seeing my own self-worth and seeing my own self-esteem despite what other people thought of me. It wasn't because they thought I was, easygoing, and I was a giver, and I was always a nice person, and I always made them feel good. That's not the reason I wanted to feel good about myself. And as I started to see examples of that in my life, people who were being authentic and being themselves and still being loved, it gave me courage to explore that side of me a little bit more. So I think we all have our demons, we all have our, secrets, but I think that we all need to work towards opening up to ourselves at least. And then whether we choose to open up to the world or not is up to you. If you feel like that's something you need to do, then go for it. But if not, then it's totally fine to keep it to yourself. It can be your own journey.
And I think you're evidence of that. If you have been practicing the knowing and awareness of your gift of healing, your gift of being an intuitive, and your closest friends didn't know for 20 years, right? It's okay. You weren't secret. You weren't keeping them from the truth, but you're allowed to preserve it and use it in a way that feels safe for you. What do you think shifted to make you want to put this out now, 2 years ago?
I think that there's a couple of factors. I think number one, the world is ready for it more so. I think that people are much more open to learning about the soul and the spiritual journey and all of the other stuff that we don't know. I think that collectively, COVID helped us all pause and think about more than just the conveyor belt. And the
Mm-hmm.
conveyor belt to me is the conveyor belt to
The
success,
hamster
where
wheel.
we've the hamster wheel. We've all been put at the beginning of it. Like, here's the road to success, and you got to beat everyone else who's on here to get ahead. And so we all kind of had to stop on that conveyor belt and look around and be like, oh my God, there's more to life than just this rat race that we're stuck in, right?
Yep.
And so the spiritual quest began for a lot of people collectively. So I think there was the need for them to learn and understand more.
Mm-hmm.
I was evolving myself every day, every month, every year. And so as I was evolving, I was becoming more and more aware of what an amazing, amazing gift it is to have this. And I always, always want to help people. So if I can help people using my gift, why am I holding it back?
Well, it's like a smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah.
Do the thing you were born to do, serve in that way. And it probably has released a lot of tension, right? Like just the identity piece and being able to fully be seen in this world. And I mean, I just want to clap.
Oh,
Yay.
thank
Right.
yeah.
Because that in my work, that's all I want. I want people to see their identity through their own distinguished lens, right? To find the divine gift within, even in a very small way. And just little by little bring more of that into their life, right? Like it's not magic, but it does require some belief and faith and the willingness to find your own self-worth. So if your self-worth was previously defined as being a people pleaser, right? Because I can feel this, if your gift is to serve in that way, you better do it all the time to all the people,
Yeah.
right? How do you define your self-worth today?
I think that, in a nutshell, when I opened up to the world, it liberated me in a way that I can't even explain. It was as if I just shed 100 pounds. Like, it felt like I could be myself, and, not like, I would go out to places, and sometimes I would get these intuitive hits and I would want to say something to somebody and I would hesitate. And now I'm like, oh, by the way, I think that this is what I'm getting as a message for you. And you should, like, this is, I just want to let you know that this is what I'm getting, and you do what you want with it.
How
And
do
it's
people
not me
receive that?
anymore.
Do
You know,
people,
yeah, it's interesting, right? You think that, people will be like, what is she talking about? This is crazy. But I think that something magical happens when you start to evolve in your own journey. I kind of describe it as a high-rise building, and I feel like we're all on different floors, and each floor has a different energy and a different vibe and a different set of people and experiences that we attract. And as we evolve and we elevate those floors, we climb higher and higher. And so maybe I was in the basement as I was in the closet, so I was only helping like the few people whose energy connected with me. But as I started to get higher and higher, I feel like on the fourth floor, I'm like, oh my God, these people are ready for me, and then I go to the sixth floor and they're like, oh, some of them are ahead of me. I was like, wow, like I totally get what you're saying. So I started to attract the people that either needed me or were going to lift me up. And so that was an energetic thing that just started to happen. And I can now see the behind the scenes of all of that as a medium, as an intuitive energy person. I just see all of the energy pieces connect. I have so many examples I can give you. Like, it's crazy.
I'm happy to hear them.
Yeah,
or maybe one or two.
Just this weekend, right? I was invited to a conference in Atlantic City where I got to be interviewed by the founder of the organization. And, I didn't know what to expect, how to plan for it. As I started to think about it, another friend popped out of nowhere and said, I have a beach house. Why don't you come stay over with me? And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you. I'd love that. And then I get there and we get to the interview and I end up doing a little mini reading for a person who was going up on stage because I could see her whole family sitting in the front table.
Oh, wow.
Like I envisioned that. And as she started to talk, she started to give this whole credit of her success of her business to her mom and her dad who had passed, and she didn't know how to cope with that. And as a way of coping, she started to bake these cakes that her mom used to make. And so I could start to feel the emotions of her parents and how proud and how much they loved her and how they felt about her. And then I went and shared that with her. So I was able to be open and share that with her. And then we went back for the night to my friend's house, and it was like, how the weather was this weekend. It was like a major storm.
Torrential.
And I was like, oh my God, we're at the beach and I can't even enjoy this because it's so rainy and so horrible, the weather. But we had a great conversation that night. The three of us were staying together. And I woke up the next morning and I see the weather's cleared up just for like an hour where I got to experience the most magical sunrise. And it was amazing, right? So things started to happen and get manifested into my life to help me do more of this, right? And I feel like the magic is everywhere if you're aligned and if you're ready to receive. But if I was caught up in my head with, I got a secret, I have to hide this, I have to be careful, nobody knows this, and and in that energy, I'm not attracting any of it. So I think that, as you start to evolve, people start to come in and, I have attracted more people who need me and could use the help than I did before. And that's happening because I showed up, right? And the same thing's happening with the book. As I put the book out, I start to attract opportunities like this, to be on podcasts, to be in interviews with other women. Like I have 3 podcasts scheduled. At the conference, I got 2 more people who were like, oh, you should totally come and speak at my conference next year. And so all I had to do was get real with myself, put my real self out there and be authentic. And the magic started to happen.
That's it. And there's always a risk, right? And not always in a bad way, but a consequence to our choices and actions. Sure. But being clear on who you are and who you want to be makes it so much easier to take that risk and to put yourself up on that stage and to endure the rain so that and still keeping your eyes open to all the magic, because the magic is everywhere, right? And we are so fast on a conveyor belt, then we jump on the hamster wheel, and then we climb a ladder, and then we're, all over the place, when all we have to do is keep pursuing our fulfillment, our truth. So as a health coach today, and we're going to talk about the book in a little more detail, but I want to hit on this part of your story. As a health coach today, when you were 6, did you have any idea that you would be a health coach, a physical wellness coach?
I have struggled with weight all my life. But now when I look at it, I'm like, I researched health all my life because I've tried to get healthy all my life. So it just never ended.
Did you try all the things, all the diets, all the fads, all the beliefs? Okay.
Name it, I tried it.
Okay, South Beach.
South Beach was, it was around, I would say, after my second kid.
What else are some?
Oh my God, There was a watermelon diet. There was a GE diet. There was a, I don't know, chips and cracker diet. There was, there was a soup in a packet diet.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like so many crazy things, you know.
And listen, some of them might work for some people if depending on what their goals are, right? Long-term, short-term goals, who knows? But what have you found through this journey is the sustainable way? Like what's the difference between jumping on a diet and choosing a path of wellness?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one, right? I mean, like I said, I've tried all of the diets, and I think that again, I got to a point in my life where I got fed up with trying all the programs. And I think I just, in that moment of getting frustrated enough, I surrendered. I surrendered and I said, I'm done. I am no longer doing any more diets. Never again. I'm just going to do the best that I know how.
Yeah.
And in that moment is when, within the next month, a friend told me, oh, there's a new program at a gym. You should try it out. They give you your money back if you lose 15 pounds in the first month. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done. No, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't. And of course, it was New Year's Eve. I went to look for a dress. I couldn't find anything that fit me. I felt awful. All the feelings that you feel when you're shopping for clothes, nothing fits. I'm sure many people listening can relate to that. And, and the next day I called her. I'm like, all right, tell me more about this program. And so I signed up. I lost the 15 pounds in a month. I lost 20 in 2 months. I lost 30 in 3 months. And then it became this exciting game. And I was like, can I do 44? Can I do 15.5? And it kept going until I lost 80 pounds in 10 months.
Wow.
I haven't kept the weight off, but or I did keep it off for 8 years, and then I started to put it back on, which is a whole other story. We'll go into it if you want. But
Sure.
I learned how to eat clean. I learned how to cut out processed foods. And I didn't just learn the wisdom of that. I learned the mindset behind it. And when I tied the knowledge that I got about nutrition with the mindset, I was able to, in my mind, make peace with, I'm never eating added sugar again. Because, for me, I like it has to have a deeper meaning, I think, for me to be able to give something up like that. And I think I want to just say this out there for all the people listening. I think that people who struggle with weight or are overweight are the ones who are so well aware of what they eat, and they get judged for just that people think they don't have the willpower. They don't, know what they're doing. But I think those are the people that have spent the most time studying or learning or trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Whether it's, struggling with being overweight or, eating disorders, it's a compulsion to think about it and to obsess over it. And if all we know is the conveyor belt that keeps us moving forward by making these decisions, well, I'm just going to eat anyway. I'm already being judged as this. I'm going to go ahead and eat it. You know what? Feel immediate gratification. And there's a lot of head game involved. And from my experience, I didn't lose 80. I lost 50 pounds. And I did it very systematically and lots of mindset, but I learned to pause before I did virtually anything, right? Am I hungry now because I'm bored, tired, angry, distracted, thirsty, right? And I stayed curious. Well, am I really hungry, or do I need to satisfy part of my soul, right? Am I really, and sometimes I was really hungry, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it also shifted the amount of water I drink. I drink a ridiculous amount of water. And yeah, girl, look at that. By the way, for those listening, we're holding up our, what are they, gallon jugs? I don't know, water.
Half gallon here. Yeah. So no, but that's what it is. I had to understand. There was so much knowledge, right, that I learned. There was so much new.
Well, you spent all those years reading and researching self-help and wellness, right?
Yeah. But it all came together for me, because I was like, oh, it's not that I have to eat less. I have to actually eat consistently throughout the day. It's not that I can't have sugar, natural sugar. I just have to make sure I combine it with a protein. It's not that, drinking water will make me feel bloated. It's actually going to do the opposite, and then sleep and stress and mindset and triggers, emotional eating, curbing your cravings. Like, it's so much of it is chemistry, which I didn't know. I didn't know that if I ate 5 meals a day consistently, I can maintain my blood sugar throughout the day. I didn't know that before. Nobody told me that. They just said, follow this diet and you will lose weight. Go on this plan and you will lose weight. So I had to understand that. And when I did, it made such a huge difference. And for me, like I always use the example of like sugar, right? And we say added sugar is bad, processed food is bad. And I took it a step further and I was like, okay, who's benefiting by me eating all this sugar? All of these,
I was just going to lead into this question.
yeah, the
What's
companies are
upstream?
making, yeah, they're making the money. We're feeding their McMansions and we're ruining our health. And I'm like, I'll be damned if I allow anyone else to go make money off of my weakness. So there goes sugar out the door, never again. And I never touched it again.
We could talk all day about 1,000 things, but that was something I wanted to bring up is what are your feelings about marketing, right? Like in today's world when, previous to, the commercials in the early 30s, 50s coming out and the advertisements, and you can look at it and see we are told to eat, what to eat, when to eat, by whom. Oh, we think it's the FDA or some smart governing body, but no, it's big marketing. And then we get sick and we go to the doctor and now we're in the big pharma. And while I fully support, good doctors and good practices, it is not a place for health, right? The medical field as it is today is a place for, I don't know, something else.
Sickness.
Yeah.
It's sickness.
You go when you're sick.
There. Yeah.
They benefit
and
when you
it's
stay
funny,
sick.
I've worked with hundreds and thousands of people on their nutrition, right? And some of the common things that I see that you can't find in these diet programs is that, their hormones will start to regulate. Their migraines will start to disappear. Their blood pressure drops. Their cholesterol drops. Their A1C drops. And these are not things that I'm not a registered dietitian, so I'm not qualified to say that my diet plan helps them do that. But it's just an observation. And I'm a pattern reader. That's just one of my strengths that I've been told I have. And I've learned that over the years. Yes, this is what I do. I can see patterns in different situations and bring them together. And so maybe I should have been in research. Sometimes I keep maybe if I was, I could prove all of this. But clean
maybe
eating,
one day.
Maybe one day. You
maybe
never
that's
know.
the next book.
Yeah, but food is food has such healing power if we use it right. And so the more I read about it after, and I got my nutrition coaching certification, my personal training certification. And so I wanted to really make sure that it wasn't just teaching from my own experience, because there's a lot of coaches out there that will turn to coaching once they've had their aha moment. But I wanted to make sure that I had the wisdom and the knowledge to back it all up. Mm-hmm. And I could replicate the same results for people over and over and over. So, people would come for weight loss, but then they would leave as a mindset warrior. They would leave with this form that they were like, my clients to this day will go to the gym and they're like, oh my God, they have such bad form. Can you do something? I'm like, I can't do anything for them because they're with another trainer. So I'm going to respect that. But I'm glad that you're able to observe that because that means that I've done my job with you. So it's just about becoming more and more mindful. Like you said, like there's this grape meditation and it's like eating a grape and taking like 10 minutes to really feel the texture of the grape in your mouth. Roll it around with your tongue, try to peel it with your teeth and let the juices start to flow and start to experience the magic of that one grape.
My mouth started watering.
Yeah, mine too.
I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds so good.
Yeah.
But we don't savor.
We don't savor. And so, I used to tell people, I'm like, you can eat whatever you want. You want to eat the crappy processed food every now and then? Go for it. Eat it for your mental satisfaction until you get to a point where you're like, oh, this is really bad for me. I don't want it anymore.
Right. Well, be aware that you're eating the cookie and enjoy the cookie. And then if you want a second, but then ask yourself, do I really want the third? Or am I just trying to get that, let's call it the high of the first one? Right. Yeah. Like it's always trying to go back to that first savory bite. And like the science shows, and again, not a doctor, I'm just a total dork that loves this stuff. But the science shows that we lose the enjoyment over each bite that we take of our food. And it is a constant searching for that initial feeling of satisfaction, and I'm not suggesting we only take one bite of the things, right? I fully want people to enjoy, but what was it like before, during, and after? What did you think was going to happen? What were you expecting when you ate the cookie? What was your experience like when you ate the cookie? And then how did it feel after? Did you get what you wanted out of it? Right? Or was it just, I thought this cookie would make me happier, and we find it It's not
lot
very
on
exciting.
triggers with, I would focus a lot on triggers with people. Like, what triggered you to go for that entire bag of chips? Because, a lot of times they would come the next day and be like, yesterday was a really bad day, and I just came home and I ate whatever was in front of me, and there was a little sleeve of Oreos and a bag of chips, and I just went for it. I don't even know. It was not until after that I realized that I ate it all. And so then instead of saying, "Oh my God, that was awful, you need to do 20 push-ups now," I was like, okay, let's look at it from that perspective of curiosity. What happened? What triggered it? Did something happen? And then, if, of course, sure enough, something would have happened at work where they got triggered, they felt inadequate or they felt unworthy and they wanted to fight back. And food is comfort. Believe it or not, food is comfort. No matter how much we try to deny that, food is comfort. We have food at funerals, we have food at celebrations, at weddings. It just is a joy bringer, and it's instant. And there's no label that says, warning, too much of this will make it bad for you, like drugs and alcohol. So there's no regulation around it. So yeah.
No, I find with the people I work with that those moments of, oh my God, I ate the whole sleeve of cookies yesterday, are so important. They are not to be diminished or judged or put down. That's awesome. Tell me about it. Tell me everything, right? Because if we're not facing the thing that's in the way, right? If we're not getting to the root cause, we're going to be stuck, right? And then we're like standing crazy still on a moving conveyor belt, not accomplishing anything. So to go back to the mind and the body, the muscle and the mind, how do you, and then I want to move into the warrior mindset. How do you help people with this? And what does that define about the warrior mindset? Like, bring us into understanding of that piece.
Yeah, I think it's just understanding the pieces of it, right? Like, if you're trying to work your biceps, you should only feel that in your biceps. You might feel it a little bit in a secondary muscle, but for the most part, you should only feel that in your bicep. If you're working your abs, you should only feel it in your abs. And if you're feeling it somewhere else, that's a clue. Again, observation and curiosity, it's a clue that we're not doing it right. So, I've had hundreds of people come to me for training, and they're like, well, I do an assessment at the beginning, and I'm like, all right, let's see how your push-ups are. And they're like, oh yeah, I can do 30 push-ups. And I'm like, all right, let's see them. And sure enough, they start and their hips are up there and their arms are all wonky and they're not doing the form right. And I'm like, okay, let me just adjust a few things here. And I get into the technicality of it and I show them how to feel the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, now put that butt down for me, make sure that you're not scrunching up your shoulders, relax the shoulders. And then, slowly pull those abs in and then try to press down into that push-up. And the minute they do that, they plop on the ground. And they're like, oh, I could do 30 push-ups. And I'm like, you could do 30 push-ups, just not with the right form. But now that you know, we can work towards that first real push-up that you can be really proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And so figuring out the breathing behind it, the focus behind it, the technical movement, mobility parts of it, and putting it all together is what makes the magic, honestly. And then as they do it over and over and over in every session, it becomes second nature. And then there comes a day when they go to the gym and they see someone else doing it wrong, and they're like, oh, that's not right.
Is that where they find the warrior mindset?
I think that, mindfulness is such a big part of it. I do workshops on meditation now, and I tell people on manifestation and intuition, and I tell people, if you can't meditate, no problem. I got you. Because it doesn't have to be that I meditate 6 hours a day and then
thank you.
Yeah, I'm yelling and screaming at my kids the next hour, right?
Right.
And I'd rather you be meditative in everything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And meditative versus meditation, it can change the whole world, for you, because I am not a big meditator. I am a Gemini. I am a manifesting generator. I have 20,000 browsers open in my head. I'm a creative. And I have my own way to manage my chaos. But if you ask me to sit still for an hour, I still struggle to this day. Mm-hmm. So, but I try to be mindful in everything that I do, and because I've cleared that mindset clutter and I've done that inner work, I am able to be meditative throughout my day. And not to say that I'm always zen and I'm always happy. I have my moments, but human. I know how to process them easier than to get caught up in that story. I'm able to be the observer easier. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really just want to underscore, I really appreciate the difference between meditation and meditative, because I have conversations with people and I might be the worst meditator, but I do it, right?
Yeah.
And I talk
Yeah.
with people and they're like, "Oh, I can't meditate." And I'm like, "Well, you can't or you don't." "Well, I don't do it well." "Well, what does well mean?" And they're like, "Well, you're supposed to sit in lotus position with your fingers somewhere and the music and the lights and the gems and all the things, and I'm supposed to have no thoughts for 30 minutes." And I'm like, "My good God, that is so much stress."
Yeah. Can you
Right? So
imagine?
it's
It's
just
the
one,
expectation.
yes. And it's managing the expectation that, again, let's look at who said that. Who is
Yeah.
telling you that that's the only way? And my morning meditation is a critical piece to my day. But you might find me happily unloading the dishwasher as I listen to it. You might find me folding socks. You might find me sitting on my back porch and stretching, or who knows. But I'm doing this first. And then I'm just kind of moving through life because there's still that voice in my head that says, keep moving, Michaela, keep moving, Michaela, keep going. And I like to keep going. Right. And sometimes you might find me sitting for 20, 30 minutes, maybe a little antsy, but I kind of stay sedentary. But I don't believe that there are rules to how to connect with that inner voice. I think it is as unique to me as it is to you. And I feel so bad when we put these expectations on ourselves, right? Because to your story, to become a warrior, right, we have to be curious, we have to be compassionate with ourselves, and we have to be willing to do what? I'm thinking it's to have the courage to be seen. Would you say that's a part of it?
Absolutely. Oh my God. I think you hit it on the nail, right? I mean, going back to that conveyor belt example, right? I mean, if everyone on the conveyor belt suddenly stops and starts to meditate, we're like, oh my God, oh my God, she's doing it. He's doing it. I can't do it. And that comparison and that fear and that anxiety and the stress is just building up more and more. But
Mm-hmm.
instead, if we take ourselves off the conveyor belt, let people go at their own pace, we find a nice little garden on the side and say, I'm just going to stop here and just observe, right? What's happening? Oh, there's a beautiful flower. Oh, there's a bird. Oh, there's this. And suddenly we're out of that chaos of the mind, right? And it's all mindset. It's all the 6 inches between our ears that causes us to get caught up in the story that we tell ourselves. So, and that's why mindset, I think, comes back over and over. I always say there's a witch and a warrior, an evil inner witch in our head, and a little warrior. The warrior whispers, unfortunately, for most people, and the witch is loud with the microphone, right? And screaming and yelling and telling us how we're not good enough, we're not meditating better than the other person, we're not doing this, we're not doing that.
I'm
And the
seeing
warrior,
the witch from, like, what is it, Hansel and Gretel, with like warts on her nose and, like, just
yeah, it's like, oh, who do you think you are to go and try something new? Like,
yes.
those kind of conversations. And then the
So that's the
warrior,
ego, right? That's the
that's
ego saying,
yeah, yeah.
stay
And it's both
safe.
ego versus
Don't go out
soul.
there.
Yeah. And so the warrior is like whispering, no, you can do it. You try again. Just try one more time. What's the worst that can happen? And so for me, I think, as I was going through my own wellness journey, I got obsessed with breaking barriers. And, like I was running on the treadmill at 7 miles an hour one day. And then I hear my coach's voice come in and say, I think you can do 8. And, it was like he was playing the warrior for me because my own warrior was kind of like quiet and pushed away in some deep, dark basement corner inside my head. But he would come in and he would be like, you can do 8. And I was like, oh my God, I just did 8. Can I do 9? And then it just woke up the warrior inside me. And I ended up doing 10, 11 miles per hour for 30 seconds on the treadmill. It was insane.
But you
Okay.
did it.
But I did it. And in that moment, I felt invincible. I shared the story of like jumping on a 12-inch box, which at the time scared the bejesus out of me. And I thought I was going to die or fall or break my legs or break my nose or break my face. I don't know what horrible thing would happen. But the minute again, I was pushed by coaches to help me get over that hump. And the minute I did it, the first thought that came in my mind was, where's that 18-inch box? I made eye contact with that 18-inch box. I'm like, you're next.
You're
Because
it.
that's what happens when you let that little warrior speak up, and you just want to do more of that and more of that and more of that, because that's what your soul is craving, to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, to be validated, to be empowered. And so it's like, okay, the warrior break. And now I'm not going to let this voice die down inside of me, no matter what, because it feels good in my soul, like deep down in my soul, it feels good to be empowered to do stuff that I was freaked out and afraid to do before.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and I think it's Seneca, it is Seneca that says, we suffer more often in imagination than we do in reality, right? And we have these self-limiting beliefs, and we have this idea that 12 inches is just too much. But what if you could, right? So you started sharing a little bit about the nudge that pushed you to write your first, most amazing production of the warrior mindset. So when you got over that nudge, right? People helped push you. What was the first thing that you did to start writing the book?
Yeah, I think that once I made peace with the idea, because I have a friend that I turn to for spiritual guidance, and I'm like, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? And she's a tarot reader, and she's amazing. And she would always tell me, you should be on your fourth book by now. And I was like, no, I don't even know what to write about. I'm not an author. Da, da, da. And I would deny it. For a year, I think I denied it. And then I finally got to the point where, I had this meditation experience where I was being shown like hungry people sitting outside of my window, and I have this spread of food inside with me, and I was being shown that you have all of this, and there are hungry people sitting outside. What's going to make you get up and give it to them? And I woke up from that in tears. I was like, okay, I'm writing the book.
Those who can't see us, I'm weeping at the moment. It's so true. It's so true. It's so true. And we all have those hungry people wanting what we have. But you saw it and you chose it. And I'm going to pull my composure back together.
Yeah.
So,
and so that day I decided, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to show up and I'm going to write the book. And then it was like, holy shit, I don't know what to write. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but
this is end all the things, meaning end all the words or whatever.
Okay, so I was like, I have no clue how to write a book. So then, I had two options. I could go out in the world and research how writing works and how all of that works, or I could sit in my flow and let it come through. And so because that other process seemed very daunting, I thought I could sit. I'm used to sitting with myself and letting things flow. And when I'm as a medium, I do my process through something called auto writing. So I just literally will put my pen to the paper and it just flows and I write. And so I sat in front of my computer and I said, okay, book, let's do this. Let's come through. And I didn't know what the structure was going to be like. So we were on vacation in Cape May, and I was walking around those cute little stores, and I see this little car freshener that says warrior, not warrior. The one thing I knew was that the book will be about mindset, right? Because mindset was the one thing. I had t-shirts already that said mindset is everything. That was a word that I was using a lot already. And so I knew it wasn't going to be about how to lose weight, how to eat well. It was going to be about the mindset, because I think that's the first piece that everyone needs to work on. And then when I saw that car freshener, that pretty cute little thing, and it said warrior, I was like, that's what the book's going to be called, the warrior mindset. And then I was like, I don't know how to structure it. And so I had this story of like this, before my fitness days, I was a photographer. So I was doing this photo shoot for a fundraiser where they told me to get creative and have fun with. And the fundraiser was for an organization that helped domestic violence victims, and mostly women. And so I was thinking about how to, empowerment was my jam. So I made these like cards, these big square cards, and each one had a belief on it. And it said, believer, not doubter, fearless, not fearful, warrior, not worrier, blessed, not stressed. And somehow I came up with 7 of these. Again, I remember downloading them in a meditation. And I came up with 7 of these. And as I was thinking about the structure of the book, I was also looking for this article I had read about warriors somewhere. And as I'm digging through my drawer, of course, I find all of these cards after years and years of not looking at them. And I'm like, as soon as I saw them, I was like, these are going to be the chapters. And so it was a very divinely guided book, and it has just come through me. And I think I wrote 70% of it in one weekend.
It's almost like you weren't writing it. It's
allowing it to flow.
You were allowing it to be. So when you look at that, and thank you for sharing all of that, when you look outside your window in that meditation where the hungry people who were they? Like, who did you write this book for? Right? Who needs to read it? Or who is ready, who wants to read it?
I think that, we spend so much of our time, our energy, and our efforts in stress, in worry, in doubt, in fear, in playing the victim, in scarcity. And so I feel like we're missing out on all the magic by getting caught up in that. And so, because I get to live this awesome, beautiful life where I get to see the magic and see the behind the scenes of the magic, I mean, just this weekend when I went to this conference, right? This woman comes down, and the conference was inside a casino. And I'm not a gambler. I'm not one of those people to go down to and say, let's go to the slots. So we got there a little early, and this woman goes, let's go down. I'm going down to play the slots. You want to come? And I'm like, well, actually, I just want to get a coffee, but I'll come with you. And so as I walked down, I felt this one machine just calling me. I put in like $5, and I kid you not, $5 went to like $1, and then I won like 180 bucks.
You're
And I was like,
kidding.
I'm like, oh, thank you, universe, more, please. Now I can say I got paid to go speak. But
I love it.
abundance is everywhere, right? But if we don't choose to open ourselves to it, then we're living in scarcity and worry and fear and doubt and all of those things, all of the things that are not serving us. And so I think the people who are living in that mode of like, I don't have good relationships around me because I don't know what to do there. I'm just too stressed about everything here. My work is just chaotic. I just don't know how to cope and deal. If you're in that negative, low vibe mindset all the time, and sometimes people are in denial. So I tell them, you have to get real. What are you really feeling? Let's get real. There's no shame and guilt in getting real. Do the inner work. Identify who you are. I always say I've done a PhD in ME, in me, in me, because I
That's great.
overanalyze. Yeah, every part of me, I have overanalyzed it to death. And now I know what goes on in my mind, and I know what my tendencies are. And I don't know it all. I'm still learning and I'm still evolving. But I also see those same patterns in other people. So I would think that, the person that could get the most help is people who are, just living in fear, living in worry, living in doubt, living in insecurity. Like, let's dig a little deeper and use the 3 A's that I have in the book and break it down and take the steps to let go of that, because it's like carrying all these invisible backpacks around, and they're heavy and they're weighing us down. And
I
we're
call it the
choosing.
Samsonite collection. Samsonite collection of luggage. You got all of them.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. So true.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's who it is, the ideal person that needs this book. And I'm trying to create a course now to go with it, because I feel like sometimes it's just reading it is not enough. You need someone to help hold your hand through that process and help you through it, and help you, because it can be a scary place when you open up that suitcase, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sometimes it's like, oh, why have I been carrying this all along? I have no idea. Okay, let's chuck this one. And then sometimes it's like, oh, I gotta open, there's another one in here, and there's another one in here, and I gotta go deeper. And and I tell people, I'm like, go for the therapy, go to the coaches, go to the books, go to the podcast, whatever it takes. Go to YouTube. Freaking YouTube has like a video for everything. Like, I
Oh my
remember
gosh.
terrified for a competition that I was going to compete in. And I went to look for fear meditations, and I found meditations just to help you with fear. So it's all there. We just have to start looking, and it starts coming at us.
That's it. But we have to be able to call it out, right? We have to address our fears. Otherwise, we don't go very far, right? Like that becomes the limit. And if we're not looking for the love, we get stuck in the fear. So what would you say, if you're willing to share, what are you, or if you are holding any fear towards the release of the book? Do you have any fears about that?
Oh my God, are you kidding? I want to barf every time someone compliments my book. Like, that's the fear of being seen. As much as my soul craved being seen, I'm terrified by it. I was a photographer. I wanted to be behind the camera helping you feel good. I was a coach. I wanted you to get healthy and feel good about yourself. I never wanted to do the booty workouts on Instagram. I was never going to put myself out there in the camera, right? It was about being behind the scenes. So every time that I'm being nudged to go forward, like a lot of my meditations, I see myself speaking on stage and I'm like, I don't want to go there. Why can't it be in my little world, doing my little things that, and helping the little people? But I don't know, we'll see where it goes. And yeah, of course there's fear. There's fear of what will people think? What will be the judgment of, like, do I have any qualifications to write about mindset? There's a bazillion books already about mindset. But again, the inner work that I've done has led me to understand that I have a different way of processing things. And there are people out there who need my way of processing things to break free of their fears and their worries and their insecurities. And if I can help even one person, I've done my job, right? I've shown up and I've done the work. And the fact that I get these validations from the universe every time I show up is a sign that I need to keep showing up because I'm doing the right thing.
Well, and I'll just bring you back to your vision of seeing the hungry people outside and having all the food inside. And if there's any doubt in your mind, I want you to call me, and we're going to go ahead and replay some segments of this podcast where we talk about your credentials, not only through certifications and devotion in that way, but of your life, the experience and the ways that you've learned. I think that I have so many questions about being a photographer and how that helps you reframe the world as you see it today, when you see it through the lens, right? There's, my gosh, just your acknowledgement of being a medium. That's a big deal. That's not little stuff. And the fact that you use it. I've been around some mediums who are very invasive. They are not respectful of people's space. And sometimes I get a little uncomfortable because I am very open, right? And I feel like people want to like suck out of it, just take it all. So I find when people are like, I'm a medium, I'm like, oh, let me check in on how I feel. And I did not feel that with you. I didn't feel it before I knew you were a medium. And then when you told me, I was like, cool. I feel there was no tension, right? So what that tells me is you show up in a curious space, but not an invasive, right? And I think there's a big difference there. So anyway, I could keep going on and on about why you are highly qualified to write this book. But I want to shift it and start to wrap up and ask you just one or two quick little questions, because I think we've seen, this very higher level, this evolved piece of you. But what was something that made you really angry when you were a teenager? Something we haven't discussed yet. And I'm just thinking very random.
Injustice, right? Injustice towards anyone that didn't deserve it, or someone who was helpless being taken advantage of. I remember doing a project in my college where I had to study something about women. I don't even remember what it was, but I read about little kids getting raped, and I was like, just made me wild with rage. And I was like, this is just taking advantage of the helpless. It's just the worst thing in the world, and just made me crazy. Yeah, it's like, no, nobody deserves to be treated badly. Everybody deserves respect. Everybody deserves kindness. Everyone deserves compassion. Yeah, so anytime I see especially women suffering, I feel like my heart just wants to reach out and give them a big hug.
Same.
Yeah.
What made you really happy when you were a teenager?
What made me being around friends, just having conversations, getting deep with stuff. Like I know those late night conversations that in the dorms where we challenged each other's thoughts, and saw a whole different perspective from a different human being compared to what we were used to all our life in our own homes.
Right.
So anything that opens my mind, anything that shifts my perspective, it just lights me up.
And I appreciate that. And both of those answers really tie into who you are today, right? You are showing up, even if it's one of those people outside your window, to serve them, to diminish injustice, to teach empowerment. Because when we have that community, right, that space where you can be seen, all the other stuff, that the needs are handled, right? And you and I met in a women's empowerment group. We are both in big. We have had lots of interactions, and we surely will have more. But real quick, in just our last few minutes, what is the role of mentorship? Like, how important is it to have, in this case, women and people to be with you on this journey?
It is so important. My God, it is everything. And I think if I didn't have the mentors, and if I didn't have the coaches, and if I didn't have the guides show up in my life, I would still be the little girl born in India, raised in Dubai, moved to a whole new country in America, struggling to fit in. But the fact that I was welcomed everywhere I went, and I was encouraged to be more myself. And I think big is such a big part of that. Believe, Inspire, Grow. It's the organization that you were talking about. And it's, when I remember when COVID hit and I would show up to the virtual meetings, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to shift my business. I have these ideas. What do you think? And people were ready to jump in and say, how about you do it this way? Oh, of course, that's a great idea. Do it, go for it. And giving me that nudge and that push to say, you can do it, was so, so important. And I am who I am because of my mentors, because of my guides. Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise.
That's great. Of all the self-help books that you were reading and devouring, which one was your favorite?
I don't know if it was my favorite, but it changed me in a big way. It was A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
I
And
haven't read that
I
one.
read it when Oprah did a whole thing with him where she read chapter by chapter and she discussed each chapter with him. And it is not an easy book to read by any
Okay.
means, but it shifted. I think that I was in that moment in my life. I needed a jump, an elevation, and I got it from that book. So, there's a lot of things he talks about, about being the observer, about, the pain body that comes up within us. And yeah, I mean, I recommend people read it with a group because you got to analyze the book. You can't just read it. So
It's
that's
not as
why.
fun when you're doing it in a silo, all alone. So, okay. So, you may know I'm a big podcast junkie. I especially am very fond of Tim Ferriss. I just get so much out of his podcasts. And he asked the question at the end, if you could have a billboard, assuming that your book and all of your services have already been properly marketed, if you could have a billboard that says one thing to millions of people, what would you say?
Wow. I followed Tim Ferriss, but I definitely didn't get to that question. I would have been more prepared. What would my billboard say? Ooh,
I've
so
thought
hard.
about giving people time to prepare, but I think it's important on this day. What do you think? Right. So it could change tomorrow.
Unleash the warrior within.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
And that looks to me like a lot of people standing on a conveyor belt, letting their light shine, standing up in their fullness, saying, I'm willing to be seen. But that requires work, right? To gain that willingness requires work. So whether it's physical fitness, mental fitness, spiritual fitness, we have to manage all of it, as well as financial fitness, all the home fitness. So if we're listening right now and we want more of the warrior, we want to gain more understanding, we want to get the book, we want to be a participant in the course you're creating, what's the best way to find you and to be involved in this beautiful work you're doing?
Yeah, thank you. Oh my God. I want to add one more quick thing with the billboard because I thought of it and I was like, maybe I would say win the mind, win the world. That would be my other tagline.
Ooh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Don't go on
win
from
the
that. Win the world,
win the mind, win the world.
because the mind is your world, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
okay. Ooh,
Yeah. Everything starts there
I
and
got to think on that.
ends.
Win the mind, win the world, because our perception of the world is created by the stories we tell in our mind, right? The whole perception. So is it raining or is it giving me time to be inside and rest so that tomorrow morning I'm fresh and I can get up and see the sunrise? Um, I love that. I think they're both gold, but that one really just made my brain stop and go, wait a minute. And I just saw my whole head as a globe, a kind of glowy globe. But thank you. I appreciate you going back for that. This is what the show is about, right? Like it's not structured, it's not super organized, but it's about exploring our thoughts and being willing to say, I had this thought, but oh, I have another one. And I want people in life to know that they can believe something yesterday and believe something different tomorrow. And while that sounds careless or callous sometimes, it's really today. Who do I want to be? And am I telling the right story to help me get there?
Yeah. Give yourself permission to be more, just be, and learn more about yourself. But yeah, if anyone wants to reach me, I am fitwarriorlife.com. Fit Warrior Life is everywhere: Facebook, LinkedIn, all of the places. And so that's how they can get in touch with me. I have a lot of freebies on my website that they can take advantage of, free meditations, things like that, that you can, lots of good, healthy food, energy balls, things like that, that they can try and nourish their body, not punish it.
I love it. Well, and one of the things I wanted to ask you about, but we're going to go ahead and wrap, I think, because I know we've both got busy days ahead of us, but in your signature topics, I'm just going to leave people with this. Hurry up, inner peace. I don't have all day. I love it. I'm like, yes, right? Because I say it all the time. If you have time to meditate, give yourself 15 minutes. If you don't have time to meditate, give yourself an hour. So we'll leave that with y'all today. And I will preface it by saying, earlier in our conversation, we talked about meditation versus meditative. So how can you go forward today, dear listeners, a little more meditative, a little more thoughtful, a little more curious, and with a little more warrior mindset in it? And if you're looking for some inspiration, please, please, please follow Chitra. She is as delightful today as she was yesterday, and I know it will only get better. So I cannot wait to get my little hands on this book. I can't wait to learn and grow with you. And I have to take a minute. I'm just really grateful for you and the work that you do and the way that you are willing to show up in your life. I created this podcast to help highlight people who use their gifts to grow, change, and serve. And I see that in abundance with you. So that was emotional. Sorry. Not sorry, just whew.
Yeah. Allow it to come through, because tears are released. They're not a sign of anything negative. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story, and for creating this amazing collection of stories that I can't wait to go and check all of them out.
Thank you.
I think that you're doing some amazing work by creating the space and the safety for people to come and share openly. So kudos.
That's my only goal. I want people to feel safe in my space so that they can fully appreciate theirs, right? And fully be seen in there. So as I pull myself back together, dear listeners and dear Chitra, I thank you all so much for showing up with us today, and wherever you are, I hope you make it a great day. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on another episode of And All the Things. If you enjoyed today's show, please like and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. If you really liked it, please go ahead and rate it. Then think about who in your life might also need to hear it and any of the other episodes we have shared. Then share it with them. When you find something meaningful, something valuable, you've got to share it and pay it forward to those you care for. Thanks for joining us, and follow along on Instagram at MyJoyCoach to see more of me, your host, Michaela Birdyshaw. And as always, make it a great day.